Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello. I need to be loud. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. How's that? That's louder, right? Excellent. So if you can go ahead and get your lunch and come on and sit down. Also, a reminder, even in this session, we'd like you to go ahead and scan the QR code. If nothing else, that'll help us plan for lunches in the future. And also, I'd really like to know who, roughly how many people are attending. So welcome to the IETF 114 version of Working Group Chairs Forum. I'd like to remind everybody that this is your forum, so any agenda suggestions are always welcome, things that you think we ought to be discussing. Also, as a reminder, this is the Notewell for the IETF. This is an official IETF meeting, and the Notewell does apply. A few other reminders. Since we're having lunch, when you finish eating, put your masks back on. But I guess in this particular session, masks will need to be off for a little while. We are also going to use the queue. We do have some remote participants, so please do that. So this is our agenda for today. We have an update from our Ombuds team, an update from our tools team, and an update on some of the work that has been ongoing to help improve some of the chairs training and materials. We will have an open mic at the end. We do need to end promptly at 12:45, and then we will need to quickly clean up and exit the room because other meetings come in after us. So with that, Pete?
Karen, this is Spencer. Could I ask you a question real quick? I think I just signed into Emodir with that.
You did.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay.
This is we need to figure out.
Thank you.
All of this is lumped under Emodir, and we're still working out how we want the tooling to work for the various activities under there.
I think I am sufficiently loud to speak through a mask. So, we're just here to give our every so often Ombuds team reminders. We being me today, because both Allison and Melinda are off remote. So I got to be the stucky. We're mostly here to remind you that the Ombuds team is here to help and are absolutely willing to help chairs out. We are, if you would like to come to us for advice, either in person at the meeting or drop us some email, we are glad to advise as we can. We've even been invited by one AD to come to speak to a particular working group that was having some issues with people sniping at each other, and we're glad to even do that in a sort of non-official capacity. But we wanted to remind you, more importantly, of the division of labor here. We are not the behavior police. You'll notice that the way that our RFC is written, we do everything behind closed doors, lots of confidentiality. We are not here to get up at the mic and say, stop doing that. That's not our purpose. Chairs have the ultimate responsibility and authority in RFC 2418 and BCP 25 generally. If you haven't read it, please do, to address disruptions in working groups. You have the ability to disallow someone from going to the mic. You have the ability in different circumstances and with different mechanisms to stop people from posting to mailing lists. It is your job to stop behavior that is being disruptive to the work of the working group. That's not an Ombuds team responsibility. Like I said, we are absolutely happy to advise you on how to do that and work you through the process if you need that help. We're all old hands at the IETF processes, but please do not expect that the answer to this person's being a jerk is, oh, go talk to the ombuds team about that. This is something that you all as chairs really have to take on. When it comes to things like harassment, and by that I mean, you know, something more interpersonal and direct, someone making disparaging comments about groups, someone doing something off list, harassing someone behind the scenes, that is something that we want to hear about, and please do bring those kinds of issues to us. But overall, if it's happening on the mailing list and it's disrupting the working group, we expect you to take up dealing with that. If it's something that is more problematic and certainly illegal, come talk to us about that. Finally, please do feel free to reach out by email to either the Ombuds team address directly or to any one of the three of us directly. The way we generally handle things is if it comes to the Ombuds team address, we'll assign one of the three of us to deal with it. So that only one person, especially if it becomes a true Ombuds team issue, so only one person is dealing with the confidential information. And with that, I'd just like to open up the mic if anybody has any questions or problems they've encountered. Glad to talk about them here.
Any questions or comments? Oh, wait. Somebody dashing to the mic without putting himself in the queue, but that's okay.
Hi,
This time.
yeah, sorry, because computer and food and, sorry.
Introduce yourself though, yes.
Michael Richardson here. So thank you for reminding us that. And to the topic of this group, I still don't feel, we've done some work in the past, but I still feel chairs don't have the training and experience to deal with the problem. I took a training course sometime during the pandemic, it's all vague, on street harassment called From I Holler Back. I highly recommend it to everybody. It does have things that apply to what you just said, disruptive. It was more about catcalling on the streets and what people can do. That's the kind of training that I'm after, okay? Because it puts us in, gives us specific tools, even words and sentences that we can use in those contexts when we see them, as opposed to, oh, something bad's happening, what do I do now, right? So that's a specific thing that I really think we need. And I'll be happy to send messages to whoever it is, I guess, Emodir share, about how to do this. And
yeah, start in that
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah.
and the Ombuds team is happy to help out with that training and find resources. But yeah, if folks are interested in that, and I think it's a good idea to give you all some tools and maybe come up with some specific ideas about, you know, for IETF context, how best to handle that stuff.
right, good.
I think Greg Wood will be giving us a little bit of an update on the working group chairs training that's planned for this year that might touch on some of that. But if you have additional specific suggestions, please feel free to send it to the Emodir mailing list. But the mailing list for this particular forum remains working group chairs, though, so feel free to send it there as well.
Henk.
Hi, this is Henk. So what I heard over the course of the past days is what the encouragement of enticing people to become new blood chairs, new influx of pool of chairs. And I love the notion that if you're afraid of being a chair, so to speak, try shepherding first. So that was something I will actually actively do in all chat working groups. I will talk about quickly talk about the possibility to be a chair, but if you're not used to that, we'll boil down to become a shepherd. We have a lot of documents and they need shepherds, and you learn all the processes. We'll be there for you as the chairs and help you with that. And I think that's an excellent way, a segue into the actual chair duty, and I love the idea, and therefore, yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of promoting that. Thank you.
And to, you know, be more directly on this topic, if you do bring in shepherds, which I think is great, remember that your shepherd does not have the same authority that you have as chair. So please do hold hands of shepherds and make sure that if they are shepherding and someone is getting out of hand, that you are the one to, say to the other person, you're interfering with the progress of this working group by misbehaving. Please don't abuse the shepherd, et cetera, and so forth. So, yeah. Anything else on the ombuds team behavior topic? Thank you all.
Next, we have Robert Sparks. Robert, you want to go ahead?
Hello, everybody. I'm really sad I wasn't able to be there in person this time. Hope that I'm able to make it to London and can visit with people in real time there. Wanted to give a quick update on changes to tools. Hopefully you've noticed there have been rather large changes to the look and feel of the data tracker since the last IETF meeting. And I expect the velocity of those changes to continue. We've moved all of our source control and issue tracking into GitHub under an organization called IETF-tools. If you've not been there yet, please go visit it. If you have issues to report with any of the tools, but particularly the data tracker, please use GitHub to report those issues. If for some reason you can't, or if you think a bigger discussion is needed before you can really identify a specific issue, use the tools discuss list. So email to tools discuss is always welcome. The tools team itself has moved to holding its monthly meetings as interims of the tools group. So these meetings show up on the upcoming meetings calendar and are in Meetico. Everyone is welcome to join. They are open. They're recorded. The sessions are available afterwards at YouTube. We are keeping our notes and minutes in the notes.ietf.org site, and in the slide deck that I sent a link to the chair's list yesterday, I pointed to one of the recent set of notes, and from there there's a doubly linked list that will take you back through past meetings notes as well. You can look in that slide deck for some of the updates on specific tools. The things that I wanted to call out during this meeting was to remind everyone that we're very near the end of the tools.ietf.org transition. We're expecting to start redirecting tools.ietf.org completely the week after this meeting. And I fully expect that when we start that redirection, some new and unexpected things are going to break. Please use tools discussed to help us identify those if and when you run into them, so that we can address them going forward. One of the last things that we've been working on with the transition from tools is the replacement for the bib.xml service at xml.rc.tools.ietf.org. It's currently running at bib.ietf.org. Those of you that have been doing a lot of draft work have probably run into issues if you've had references using Cramdown in particular, or V2 to anything in the OIDC section. Sorry, not OIDC, the OID section. That's being resolved now. Hopefully will be resolved before we get into the redirection when we start the redirection next week. So I guess one last reminder, you run into issues, reporting things at GitHub is great. Mail to tools discuss is great. If there's something urgent, like you're at this meeting and you can't log into the data tracker for some reason, support at IETF.org is always your best channel to use for something needs to get fixed right now. All right, with that, I'm going to stop and take any questions.
Hi, sorry, this is Hank again. That's actually not a question, but something when I was preparing for a working group came up. It's a feature request and I will issue something, but I want to maybe communicate it here right now. Every year we are, every meeting session, we are going to do the diff of how the state of the data tracker of our working group with respect to the ID state changed to the last meeting. So what we're doing is we're going through all the IDs, checking what has changed. We should know, but you know, you're the meeting, and a diff tool, like from last meeting to this meeting, what was the state change of all adopted IDs? That would be nice. I know we should all know this from the top of our head, but sometimes we don't. And when we're doing the chair slides, I was realizing what would really probably easy to implement, maybe, I don't know, would be like, what's the diff to the last meeting?
So one quick question, with what you've manually prepared, is the most interesting thing just the endpoints, the state at the last meeting and the state at this meeting?
Exactly.
Or do you need the transitional states in between?
No transitional states in between, just the endpoints. Just
Cool.
that you basically, that would be a super chair comfy thing, you know? And I think
Yep,
it might be
got
very easy to implement, yeah.
Got it.
Okay. And happy that you look so well.
Thank you.
Hi, Lou Berger. Sorry, I didn't get into queue, but wasn't fast enough on the phone. Chris Hops wrote a tool that does that. It's in, you can just do pip. I think it's working group stats, WG stats, and you can just install it. And I don't think he's in the room, but maybe I'll send it to the list. But I
Yeah,
use it all the
please.
time for preparing my slides.
Please do send a link to the list.
Dave Taylor. So I hadn't thought about this, but I think Hank is exactly right. I think there's actually two different things. I'm not sure which one Hank is thinking about, but I'm guessing it's the first one, which is the draft status, like the data tracker for a working group says, here's all the working group drafts, and here's the status, and so on. And so that would be like the chair slides. There's also a similar thing that I do when I present a particular draft to a meeting, is I want to know the draft diffs between a particular meeting and another meeting, right? So right now there's a bunch of work to say which version of the draft was it that was in the past meeting, right? Because your diff 1 and diff 2 links are the current draft against the previous version, right? But the last meeting could have been 4 versions back. Try to figure out which is the version as of the last meeting, and then generate the diff URL between that one and this one. That's actually what I do when I'm preparing slides for a presentation, okay? And that's actually not easy to do with a bunch of clicks right now. There's a bunch of manual work right now. I think that's the other point that I think as a draft presenter, to say, is there an easy way to get a diff between the current version and the version that was presented last meeting? And again, only the endpoints, right? Which would be the same thing as the diffing utility right now is great once you get the right URL, right? It's just getting what's the URL that says this version to that version is a bunch of extra manual effort right now. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Robert? Oh, running back.
At the expense of suggesting an implementation, if you could enter a date to say, show me the diffs between this date and today, that might be a way of implementing it, because you can look up which draft was posted most recently before that date. So being able to enter a date, because then you don't have to know what meeting it was or whether it was an interim meeting or a design team call or whatever. Just enter a date, generate me the diffs.
You can do that from the history.
Yeah, as Don pointed out, there are links down in the history, but you have to manually compute when the meeting was and go find it. And I think that we could make that a little faster and more intuitive so that you don't have to do the mental calculations. All right, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you all soon.
All right, thanks, Robert. I see Greg's making his way forward, so the next subject is information updates.
Yeah, hi, Greg Wood, IETF LLC staff. I've been working on a number of things related to chairs, so I'm really pleased to be able to give a quick update on the three of them, which I don't have in my head, but I think I'll cover them all. So first, working group chairs training. As you probably saw, we had training last year, if you were around then, and it was pretty well received, and we learned a lot. And so we're, after some discussion in the Emodir group, we're going to be doing a version of it this year. It's going to take what we learned and build on that. So we're, the format's going to be slightly different. We've also assembled a group, as we had last year, to give us advice on how to best structure the training or the content of the training. And we have engaged the same experts, training experts, to help develop the content and deliver the training. So expect some more news about that in the next couple of months. We'll have both live interactive sessions and also sort of on-demand modules. And I heard the suggestion about a possible content. So feel free to send me email about that. And those are expected to be delivered in October, November, as we had last year. So happy to take questions on that. The second thing that we were talking about is the chairs.itf.org. Again, just to remind folks that based on input we had, we've combined content from the www.itf.org site that was focused on chairs and also the content on the old chairs wiki and rolled it into a new wiki style platform at chairs.itf.org. So now there's a single source for all the information that you might want as chairs, always open to suggestions about how best to organize that and content that we might want to add to that. So feel free again to send suggestions along. And one of the areas that we're working on there right now is to figure out a way to make sure that that content on a regular basis gets updated and stays relevant. So what we found with the old chairs wiki is that a lot of the content there it just had not been updated. So we want a single source of information that is always up to date. And so that's what we're working towards there. Then finally, and related to chairs, .itf.org and also chairs in general, we have stood up a new wiki, IETF-wide wiki at wiki.itf.org. And this past Saturday, we held what we called a content sprint. And the idea there is to figure out all the details that we need to figure out to get content from the old track wiki, which will be going away relatively shortly, so that we can get content from there onto the new wiki.js platform. So the content sprint went really well, actually exceeded expectations, I think. And we'll write up a summary of that and provide a further update about what that means for chairs of research and working groups. As part of the sprint, we actually moved over a number of working group wikis from track to wiki.itf.org, and yeah, so that was really great. So again, that is going to continue, and the goal that we've penciled in is to have content sufficiently moved over and dealt with so that we can shut down the track wikis somewhere around or after the next IETF meeting. So yeah, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions. I see Charles. I see Charles in person and on Meetico Q, which is fantastic.
Okay, yeah, Charles Eckel, thanks for that update. So for the hackathon, we make extensive use of the wiki as well, and I'm wondering if the format of that's going to be different probably than what each working. I haven't looked so much at the working group ones, but do you think the strategy you're looking at would also be able to bring that over? We have a different wiki actually for each hackathon we've had, so there's a lot of them. And like the meeting wiki, I'm just wondering, like how deep do you plan to go in terms of migrating data over?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So all the wiki content on various track instances is expected to either move to the new wiki platform, which is sort of what we'd like to do for all active content, which we will do for all active content. So that includes the hackathon wiki, which obviously we'd work with you and Barry and other folks on moving over, and also things like the meeting wiki. So the each IETF meeting has a wiki, and one of the things we did is sort of set up the test version for 115. But yeah, just to answer your question, all the content that's now on a track wiki needs to move to wiki.js, or in the case that it hasn't been touched for 8 years or 9 years, archived in some way.
Okay. And then you touched on my second question for IETF 115, the meeting wiki, and therefore probably the hackathon wiki. Should we plan on that being in track, or is there a plan to kind of switch the meeting wiki over for 115 even?
Yeah, ideally we'd have all the wikis related to events in November on the new wiki platform, and would want to work with you on the hackathon, obviously. But the meeting wiki is expected to be on at wiki.ietf.org.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, cool.
Spencer Dawkins, and I want to try to say quickly 2 nice things. Greg, I have really been impressed every time I've talked to you in the past couple of years about how helpful you have been knowing things about the way things work, and especially the best way to get things in front of the community. Like when we started back up with the Hot RC talks that were Meet Echo only, and things like that. I'd just like to encourage other people to seek you out, because you're a wealth of information. The related thing there probably is that I wonder if there's a good way to get you doing a report like this in front of a larger audience when that's appropriate. Just because, like the work you've done getting YouTube organized for us, I had no idea until, I said something stupid on a mailing list and you said, but Spencer, it now works this way. So, you actually do things that are very valuable. Just to think about the best way that the broader community could know about those things before we already needed to know that. Thank you again.
Oh, well, thanks, Spencer. I was expecting the 2 nice things and then maybe 1 suggestion for improvement, but I'm also happy to talk to anybody. So thank you for making a point of that, and suggestions for improvement are always welcome as well. Yeah, so we want this, all these things to work well for the community, and and like Emodir, just make the IETF work easier and better for everybody.
Robert?
So I wanted to call attention to some words that Charles used in his question that I think Greg reshaped, but I want to reiterate the reshaping. Charles, you asked Greg how deep he planned to go, or the team that he was running planned to go on content migration. And the answer is that he and his direct team have no plans. That line, what is active, has got to come from the subject matter experts for each group for the things that are being moved. So the answer to the question, as you stated literally, is that's you need to figure that out and find people to help Greg in the migration to figure out where that line is and what content is actually still active versus what is archival.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely need help.
Any other questions or comments? Nope.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Greg.
very much.
So we whipped right through those 3 topics. At this point, we are in open mic. Does anybody have anything they want to raise to the working group chairs in general? Go ahead. Put yourself in the queue or stand in the queue if that's. You can go ahead to the microphone. Since you waved at me.
Thanks. Jeff Haas. So this is intended to be an introduction to a topic. I suspect we'll want to talk about this in more detail, either on list or maybe special forum. So one of the interesting headaches we're dealing with in IDR, and this is something we've seen in other working groups as well, is what happens when you have a contentious topic that you sort of let the process move along, and rather than converging on a single solution, you converge on more than one. And this is certainly not a thing that's unique to IDR. I think we've seen this in other working groups such as Spring and other places as well. So I'm not going to go into any specific details about the headaches, and just talk about the more general details and see what people think about it. The issue that we tend to have in terms of our processes is we want to have technical discussion, move, and ideally we converge on a single solution, because the majority of the time it's a healthier thing for the industry and the people using the stuff that we produce. The challenge that we have is that sometimes there's multiple incentives for us to not converge on a single solution, and eventually, if things are left alone for long enough, the divergence into multiple solutions gets to multiple deployments, and there's really not a chance to do that convergence. That's just basically the way things work, and sometimes that's the healthiest way for things to go. The proposal I want to throw out and get feedback from the other chairs here is, in these sorts of circumstances, what might make sense as a process is that when we start seeing that these things are starting to happen, and usually you can get a feel for this in the working group based on level of interest, the participants, and how they're sort of separating themselves into various camps, rather than letting the various camps go off into their own and diverge and potentially never reconverge. It may make sense in some circumstances to simply have the working group force adoption of the topic and allow the work to basically happen in the context of the working group. And if you want your solution to move forward, you have to cooperate with all the participants. Basically force the thing that sometimes happens at the tail end of the RFC process. And clearly there's, especially when there's strong disagreements with how things could go, this may delay things going forward at all. And depending on your protocol and what your code point allocation strategies look like, the IETF allocation processes may allow people to just simply move off into their own stuff anyway. So the topic I sort of wrote a queue is, what do people think about this idea that as a mechanism to try to sort of head off this sort of disagreement, let's sort of encourage people to have this discussion up front, maybe discourage allocation of code points that allow these things to happen.
Okay, so I'm guessing the next 2 people in queue are not on this subject. So is there anybody that wants to comment on this specific subject? with apologies to the two people behind them in line in the queue.
So apologies, I'm one of the other IDR chairs. Let me put a bit of weight on that. We've spent the last month and a half trying to work on it. Our email is what? Oh, it doesn't work that way. Okay, sorry. You got a lot more work if you don't take that approach. We found it was lots of work. And apparently I'm not really good talking through a mic, so.
Any other thoughts on this topic? I think it would be useful. I don't remember exactly who suggested the link to the external training for conflict resolution. I think that might be helpful. And I also think the training that Greg is giving is going to address that topic. So at least parts of that topic. It won't address specifically what you're talking about, Jeff, but maybe we should have some follow-up offline conversation on it. I think Charles, Charles, go ahead.
Okay, and if I can share my screen too, I think it might be a little more helpful. Because I wanted to, this is Charles Eckel, I wanted to point to or call out just one of the many cool features that have been added to the data tracker. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. I mentioned it in the hackathon, and I have a couple of slides that I can send to the list if we don't get them up here. But in GitHub, you can, in the data tracker, you can, just a second while I try to share my slides here. Okay, great. I'll make it. So in the data tracker, there's this field. It's kind of a little small there, but additional resources. And if you click on it, one of the things you can do is you can add related implementations. And just to give you an idea, this again is small. It should go forward. Hasn't advanced yet up there. But in addition to attaching a GitHub repo, you can also attach a related implementation. Huh, that's weird that it's not working. Sorry about that. So we try to use this in the hackathon and encourage people, hey, if you're working on some code related to a working group draft or an RFC or an individual draft, please go ahead and add it using this related implementation so people are able to find it. But one of the challenges is if it's not an individual draft, they actually can't do it themselves. They have to go to their working group chair, and then you can do it for them. And I think for some people, just that one extra step, they either, that keeps them from doing it. So I don't know how much that's happening, but in any case, as a working group chair, if you can encourage people to use this functionality, maybe when someone brings a draft in, an individual draft or something, when it gets added to your working group's list of things, if you can ask them, hey, is there any code associated with this? And if so, help them to get this field set up. I think it'd be great. And so just thanks.
This is Spencer Dawkins. I got up to say something else, but I'd like to agree with what Charles just said and say, I'm seeing now, now that we're meeting in person and hybrid meetings, I'm more aware of new participants who are bringing concrete proposals to the IETF with code behind them. I can imagine for a new participant, the idea of asking working group chairs to do anything might be kind of intimidating. They will be less intimidated soon, but just like I say, just adding that as another reason for Charles to say, have the working group chairs encouraging people to do that. The thing I actually got up to say was now with two IETF's hybrid IETF meetings behind us. I'm wondering if there's any additional guidance that we can give to people who are doing BOF meetings, especially working group forming BOF meetings in a hybrid meeting environment. One of the conversations I was having in Jabber with the people from Mock was, can you ask who in the room agrees with this, and we get up and say roughly the same thing, so that they're not having to chase +1s all over the place, but just to ask a question like that. I don't know if that's good advice, but it seems like it would be good for people who are smart about chairing meetings and things like that, and who have good ideas like the working group chairs, to be thinking about that between now and November. Thank you.
Wes Herdicker, USCISI, and one of the guides leads. Spencer, I wanted to follow your note with another one saying, it's really important that working group chairs figure out how to help newcomers get involved. But even to a bigger area, one of the things I realized, especially for the BOF I ran yesterday, is a lot of times we have newcomers coming to the IETF to bring their work and their ideas. And we have this notion in the IETF sometimes of, well, that's an area that we don't work in. Well, how does the IETF expand if we don't figure out how to add new topics and new areas that may not be things that we work in, but we have sort of the expertise to help them bring that in, right? And that this happens a lot for especially new BOFs that come in that are entirely new areas of work, and then we should figure out how do we help them integrate, even if it may be a new topic and a new area for ourselves.
Paul Wouters, Emodir reviewer, apparently. So this quick question, I'm not sure what an Emodir reviewer is. I guess it's an artifact of being part of the EMU
I can't hear you.
secretary. Sorry. I just noticed that it says Emodir reviewer behind my name and Wes's name, and so I'm assuming that it's just being part of the EMO directorate, because we don't do reviewing, right?
Right. It's one of the things where the Emodir directorate is called a directorate, but it doesn't look like other directorates, and so there's some issues there. I mean, it's the same reason why this meeting fell under Emodir, because of the way.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I mean, we need to work on that, but.
Sure, I knew that's not what I was coming to the microphone for. I was actually wanting to talk a little bit about the previous topic of the implementation section. We do have an implementation status section in the draft. It would be nice if the data tracker could either warn via the ID NITS tool to say that there are implementations listed in the data tracker, but you did not specify them in the draft, or even better, to maybe generate the code for the implementation section draft when it's based on the data in the data tracker.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to talk about issues with side meetings that we have this week. So we had side meetings. We're trying to be remote friendly, and it's really challenging. So I don't know if this is the right forum to discuss this or talk about this, but I was wondering if there's a way to kind of help us kind of enable that meeting to be remote friendly, not asking for full support from MeetEcho, but somehow to allow us to easily allow remote participation, because it was really kind of challenging this week.
Dhruv? I do think the issue of side meetings and open participation in side meetings is something that could probably use further discussion. I'm just not sure what the answer is at this point. Dhruv, did you want to join?
Sorry, I think I pressed by mistake.
Oh, his mistake. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for this forum? All right. With that, oh wait, I see. I guess.
So I'm not clear on how to proceed from here. Like what do I need to do to kind of have either a discussion or some way to get help with that? So what is the right course of action here?
I'm not, and I mean, it's to a certain extent, it's a resourcing issue. So I don't know how, I'm pausing. I see somebody slowly walking up behind you. Alexa, thank you.
We'll see if we have the same answer. This is Alexa. My
Closer to the mic.
understanding is that it is an ISG decision, and so this needs to be taken up with the ISG, they've been pretty clear that they don't want to provide a lot of support for side meetings, formal support, but it's something that should be raised with the ISG.
Okay, thank you. Pete, are you going to the queue?
This
or
is
you?
Barry Levi. I can say something that Lars told me the other day.
Okay.
That they're working on getting a different skin on on Meet Echo that would make it clear that this is a side meeting and not an IETF meeting, and that might be the way forward with this, so that they could then provide Meet Echo for that. But that's early stages right now.
So it's in their queue.
This is Pete. Part of the issue is that the more side meetings get official recognition by the IETF, lots of other procedural things start to kick in. So the IESG has always been of the mind that you want to keep these things very separate. The initial idea was we're providing room space only because it was available anyway, and so that would be convenient. But if you start doing, well, we want the IETF tools available in the room with audio support, with remote participation, it starts to become an officially sanctioned thing. And that's the concern of the IESG. So the more we can provide, but make it clear that it's separate, that's a possibility.
Just one more point about that is it's, you know, I think we can hear that, you know, please, we would like some help with side meetings. What would be a lot more helpful than that is specifics about exactly what kind of help would be most helpful. Like what exactly are the pain points? And then, you know, maybe as Pete said, they can be addressed or maybe they can't be. You can, you know, talk on the mic or put an email to IESG or whatever works for you.
Go ahead. Go.
I just wanted to say plus one to what John said about that. One of the things that we're trying to train people to do in the hot RC talks is to be very clear about what kind of help you're asking for. You know, do you want somebody with a certain kind of expertise? Do you want collaborators? Do you want implementers, something like that? I think that trying to have that same mindset for side meetings may be very helpful also. You know, is this a general knowledge sharing thing? Is this a, you know, we want to work on a charter together, whatever. But just to say, what's the ask for people who come to the meeting?
Sorry, the ask is I want to be able to allow remote participation. I'm not asking for full support for Meet Echo. Maybe the idea of a light Meet Echo is the right answer. But instead of me dealing with the audio not working, mute this, unmute that, took 10, 15 minutes just to figure it out. If we can have that set up, at least, not asking for full support. Maybe the Meet Echo Lite is the right answer. I don't know. But if I schedule a Meet Echo or a WebEx or whatever, I want to be able to allow those remote participation, right? That's all I'm asking, right?
Okay. I think we've heard that this is something the ISG is looking at, and so we can probably expect some additional information at some point in time. Are there any more topics for open mic? Okay, with that, I'd like to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Please be sure to take your garbage because there'll be another working group in here in 25 minutes. I used to. I'm sorry for the last one. I realize.
Yeah, right, it doesn't have all the links.
Right. Doesn't have all of them. And everything is longer. All.
Right.
And I don't, it's not a bug. We haven't clearly told them what we want and what we need.
Right. It needs to be more like an Eric, not a director. Because it needs to chairs.